I've been getting a lot of questions on stream lately about two topics. Number one, is there a cycle with 1.0? And number two, will my characters be reset? Will all of the characters in the game be reset on 1.0? And these are, of course, very reasonable questions to be asking. And so I decided I would make a video kind of talking about this. Well, I noticed something very interesting when I went to do some research for it because I wanted actual sources from EHG to get it. This question is popping up an awful lot in a lot of areas, especially on Reddit. If you search wipe, for example, on Reddit, you get a lot of questions about this. And the most interesting thing to me is that there's almost no answers from the devs on this. This is a very unusual thing to me because they are usually very, very open about pretty much everything. They talk a lot. And there are actually quite a few places you can go to get answers on that. Unfortunately, they're not easy places for players who aren't used to interacting with 11th Hour Games, the Last Epoch devs, to go. For example, Mike on Ask the Devs in the Discord channel is really good about answering these kind of questions, and he also answers these questions a lot on his Friday dev streams. But if you're just trying to find a real quick and easy answer, it's not really there. So what I'm going to do today for you is answer these questions. I'm going to do them with actual answers from the devs so that you can know straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And the first one, I actually had to go all the way back to an interview that I and two of the other Maxwell members did back during Gamescom, which is way back in August, where we actually asked Mike about the cycle system and whether or not 1.0 would be the first cycle. And here you go.
So if I remember correctly, you are calling your seasons cycles. So is 1.0 the first cycle?
Yes, 1.0 is the first cycle. We'll be adding in new content with every single cycle that comes along, and initially those cycles will be included in our base mechanics as well. And everyone who's playing on the cycle, when a new one starts, those characters will get transitioned into the legacy system, where they'll be able to keep playing their characters, keep interacting with the new content, and keep having fun. However, anyone who wants to engage in the ladder and compete with other players will start over from scratch. This will provide, especially for people who are playing in Merchant's Guild as well, we provide a economy reset, so they'll be able to start from scratch and really have a lot of fun with a fresh economy.
Yeah, I can't wait. So there you go. The answer here is that 1.0 is the first cycle, and along with that, you will have all of this new content, the factions, the Warlock, the Falconer, and whatever else they come up with. But that stuff is not limited to the cycle. If you want to play your character currently, you will be able to do so because that character is going to go standard, and standard is going to get the same content. So that is really good for anyone who doesn't want to play the cycle. So you're going to be able to play a cycle, but you're also going to be able to choose to not play it, and you're not going to be down on the content or have to wait later like you do in other games like Diablo 4 and Path of Exile. In fact, Diablo 4, the seasonal actual theme stuff doesn't go to you at all. Some of the stuff that you get does, but the theme will not at all. So in this game, it's going to be different, at least at first. So I do want to make a quick shout out here because a really great source for a lot of this information has been around for quite a long time, and I actually rely on him quite a bit. If you are someone who, say, is new to Last Epoch and hungry for a lot of information on what the developers have been saying, especially over the past year to year and a half, Andrew Tilley does a great summary of all of the things that he can pull from all of the sources he can find, including interviews, including Mike's dev streams, Ask the Devs, Reddit, you name it. He is amazing at that. And this unofficial roadmap to 1.0 and beyond that he maintains on the forums is an excellent place to do it. I will link this in the description below in case you are interested. Okay, a couple of other things that I want to cover here. So a few other things that have been said by the devs recently. So we're not getting a lot of information from the devs officially, and I think they've dropped the ball a bit on this, and they really need to post something that is more official, more, say, on their forums, a direct Reddit post, an announcement to exactly how the cycles have occurred. But they have tried to say a few things in a few places. So, for example, EHG Steve here, this was recently on one of the forum posts, talks about Cycle 1 and says it's going to come at a later time. This is really confusing because we already know the first cycle is supposed to come at 1.0. They says 1.0 will take all of your current characters and move them to a standard cycle that will persist indefinitely. Then cycle 0, the launch of 1.0, will essentially allow you to create a brand new character to enjoy the launch. Now this is very, very confusing. What it essentially means is, for whatever reason, there seems to be they're calling cycle 1, what is actually cycle 1, cycle 0 for 1.0. I think this is another big misstep by, I'm assuming this is the marketing team, to try to turn this into a cycle 0, which doesn't make any sense. And to follow up with that, Mike on in the Ask the Devs Discord has been talking about this and calls it cycle 1. So that 1.0 cycle system's in place, and you can create cycle characters. Due to the fact that the game content for Cycle Legacy will be the same at launch, some people will prefer to call that cycle 0, and someone follows up saying this is pretty confusing. The first cycle should be called cycle 1 in my opinion. And Mike says, I agree. I've been calling it cycle 1 for quite a while now. I just want to go ahead right now and agree with Mike. It's in my opinion, a very big mistake to call this cycle 0, because it doesn't make any sense and it's not intuitive to a player. What does a cycle 0 mean? It doesn't have any meaning whatsoever. And that means what would happen if they call it cycle 0 is the second cycle that would occur would be cycle 1. So we'd always be off by 1. It's a really weird decision they're making, and I kind of hope they don't follow this. It's something that's just started popping up recently where Steve, I actually don't know anybody other than Steve, but Steve at least is calling it cycle 0. Hopefully EHG can get it together and just call this cycle 1 and there can be no confusion. The last thing I wanted to point out is offline play. So if you don't know already, you might be happy to know that if you like to play offline, this game actually has offline play, which is different than Diablo 4 and Path of Exile, which don't have any offline play whatsoever. And one question you might be asking is, okay, cool, it's got offline play, but can I play the cycle content? The first one at least, yes, you absolutely can. The factions will be available in offline play. Now, the Merchant's Guild is a trading system, a trading faction. Obviously, there wouldn't be anyone to trade with, so no point in playing that, but you'd have Circle of Fortune, and you'd also would have the Falconer and the Warlock, because all of the cycle content is going to be available to the offline client. So I hope this clears up some things for anyone who has been confused, and honestly, it's not your fault if you've been confused. There's a reason why Reddit looks like this right now. It's because we're not getting maybe the kind of communication on this that we should have, but I'm sourcing it for you all so you have it. I've been hearing about this all over the place, so I of course know, but not everyone is as in touch with what's going on as I am. I would imagine very few people are, because I do this so much. This is kind of just what I do. So here hopefully gives you some strong proof of how it's going to work, so you can now plan for it. You're going to have your first cycle, which should be called cycle 1, on 1.0, which is February 21st. You can play your standard character if you want to, and you'll be able to enjoy the factions, the Warlock, and the Falconer. And you can even play offline if you want to and enjoy those things as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was informative to you and helped you out. And have a great time in Last Epoch.